Boker Tov, Shavua Tov. We are at Chavav Amud Bet, 26b, 3 lines up from the bottom. And we are asking one last question on Rava. If we remember, we had a machloket between Rava and Rabbah regarding the types of Nedarim. Remember that the case was a person, he sees people eating his figs, and he says, everybody's asur to eat my figs. And then someone tells him, your father is among the people there. He says, oh my gosh. So he says, now, if he says, kulchem asurim chutz me'aba, so that's called a case of ma'amid. Ma'amid is, he still holds up his original neder, but he just added that last point, except for my father. So that, we said, in a certain way, we're going to speak at the machloket, in a certain way, you didn't get rid of your original neder. So he said, kulchem asurim chutz me'aba. Or a case of mishaneh, of changing your neder, is someone says, hey, your father's among them. Like I at first said, kulchem asurim, everyone's asur. He says, your father's among them. He says, oh my gosh, okay, sorry. Ze asur, ze asur, ze asur, ze asur, ze asur, and my father's mutar. So he totally changes up his neder. So that means he undoes his first neder and he totally changes up the neder. So
wouldn't your father be disqualified from any
like automatically?
Automatically?
No.
Like the kavod for your father.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. But no, it wouldn't. Like you could just not do any neders against your father.
I would think as the kavod, for your mother and your father, it's so high.
But you have the chance not to give honor. So
But this is like his
that's why it's a mitzvah.
Yeah.
If you have to, if it's automatic, it's not a mitzvah.
Right. You have to give that option, right? But yeah, so it's included, and then, but this guy did the right thing. Now he's like, he didn't realize his father's there. He's like, he wants to change things up. So if he was mishaneh, if he changed, then that's a different type of story because he totally changed his neder. So the machloket of Rabbah and Rava, we'll speak it out. Rabbah is of the opinion that if it's ma'amid, if you hold up your original neder, kulchem asurim, and then you just add afterwards chutz me'aba, Rabbah is of the opinion that everyone is asur except for the father. That you're allowed to do such a change. Meshaner, if you totally change up your neder, you say this one's asur, this one's asur, this one's asur, this one's asur. That's a machlok at Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel, where Bet Shammai would say everyone's asur except for the father, and Bet Hillel would say everyone's allowed, because once you change part of it, you change the whole thing. That's Rabbah. Rava is the opposite, where in a case of meshaner, when you change things up, that's kulchem mutarim. Everyone's mutar. You just changed up your neder. That's it, everything's mutar. In a case of ma'amid, if you hold up the same neder, you just add chutz me'aba. That's where Bet Shammai says that everyone's asur except for the father, and that's where Bet Hillel says, and that's what Rabbi Akiva goes with, that everyone is mutar. So according to Rava, in Mishaneh everyone's mutar, and according to Bet Hillel, Rabbi Akiva, everyone is mutar in ma'amid. Okay. So we've asked in the past Gemara 2 questions on Rabbi Meir and on Rava, and the Gemara we got out of it, and now we're furthering with another question on Rava. So let's see, 3 lines up from the bottom. Etive Ravina le Rava. Ravina asks a question on Rava's opinion. Rabbi Natan Omer. Rabbi Natan says, Yesh neder shemikitzato mutar umikitzato asur. There's a neder that part of it is allowed, part of it's not allowed. Meaning, when a guy makes a neder, part of it, it's going to fall away right away and it's going to be allowed. And part of it is going to remain in the neder state that he wanted. So what's the case? How did that work? Says the Gemara, Nadar mina kalkala. Kalkala is also figs. So he's made a neder on figs. Next page, V'hayu ba banot shuach. And among those figs was a type of fig called banot shuach, like the medjool dates, but this is banot shuach figs, which the Rosh over here says te'enim tovim, like very good figs were among them. Ve'amar, and then he found out about that. He says, all these figs I'm asur on. And then he's like, oh my gosh, there's some banot shuach figs over there. Ve'amar, then he said, Ilu ha'iti yodea shebenot shuach betocha. If I would have known Benot shuach is among those figs. Lo ayiti noder. I would not have made a neder. That's what he says. So the Gemara says, "Hakalkala asura, benot shuach mutarot." The kalkala, the rest of the figs are asur as per his neder, and the benot shuach are mutar. So this was a case of Rabbi Natan. It's a part is mutar, part is asur. Ad sheba Rabbi Akiva, until Rabbi Akiva came along, and this is similar to the past Gemarot. Until Rabbi Akiva came along, v'limed, and he taught us, neder shehutar miktato, hutar kulo. A neder that is partially undone, the entire thing is undone, and therefore everything's mutar. Everything's mutar. So now we want to know, what is the case of this neder? Is it a case of ma'amid or a case of mishaneh? Is it a case of when he says, if I would have known Benot Shuach was among them, I wouldn't have made a neder? Is that really saying, I want to keep my neder of kalkala, or is he totally changing up his neder? So the Gemara wants to use this to ask on Rava. And you can see how the Gemara is going to easily be answering this because, oh, you thought it was that? It's going to actually be this. Let's see. Says the Gemara, my love, isn't it? My love, the Amar, אילו הייתי יודע שבנות שוח בתוכה, הייתי אומר תאנים שחורות ולבנות אסורות, בנות שוח מותרות. So the Gemara says, isn't it a case of, if I would have known benot shuach is among those figs, I would have said black figs are asur, white figs are asur, and benot shuach is mutar. So I don't know white figs, but black figs also, for that matter, maybe purple ones. Benot. So maybe this is a case of, which this is meshaneh, zevazet. This one's asur, and this one's asur, and this one's mutar. So this is going to be a case of meshaneh, v'Rabbi Akivahi, and the Gemara says that it's a case of Rabbi Akiva, and upligi Rabbanan, and Rabbanan argue. So let's see. Let's go. So, and I have it in front of me here, but the case of meshaneh. The Gemara wants to establish a question on Rava and say, this is a case of Meshaneh. So, the law of Meshaneh, according to Rava, is Kula Ama Mutarim. Everything is mutar. So the Gemara asks like this on Rava. The Gemara says, hold on, isn't this a case of Meshaneh? And if it's a case of Meshaneh, then according to you, Rava, everything would be mutar. And the only thing is that the Gemara says, and everyone holds it's mutar. Kula alma, everyone says kula mutarim. But the Gemara over here says that it's only Rabbi Akiva that says kula mutarim. Upligi Rabbanan, and Rabbanan argue. So therefore the question on Rava is as follows. We brought a case of, again, figs. Or a guy says, all these figs are asur. And they say, hey, benot shuach are there. He finds out benot shuach are there. He says, oh my gosh, if benot shuach, that would have not made such a promise. So the Gemara says, okay, what type of promise is he changing to? Isn't he changing to a case of meshaneh? Zeva ze asur, this white, black's asur, white's asur, benot shuach mutar. And if it's talking about a case of meshaneh, you Rava hold, in a case of meshaneh, everything is mutar, and you hold Rava that everyone agrees that everything is mutar. But here, only Rabbi Akiva says everything is mutar. And Rabbanan don't. Obviously, if it's only Rabbi Akiva saying that, that means there's someone that counters. So, and that's the machloket anyways, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbanan. So, if, according to you, Rava, this should have said everyone agrees that everything is mutar, not just Rabbi Akiva. Answers the Gemara, no, it's not talking about a case of Mishneh. Be'omer, it's talking about a case of Ma'amid. The case is, if the guy would have known, benot shuach, figs are among them. Hayiti omer, kol kalkala asura ubenot shuach mutarot. Would have been a case of ma'amid. All these figs are asur, and benot shuach is mutar. And in the case of ma'amid, according to Rava, that's a machloket. That's a machlok Bet Shammai Bet Hillel. That's a machlok Rabbi Akiva and Rabbanan, and therefore it goes good. The case over here is talking about a case of Ma'amid, and the case of Ma'amid, according to Rava, only Rabbi Akiva says it's okay. Rabbi Akiva Bet Hillel say it's okay, that everything is mutar, not Rabbanan, and therefore if it's good according to Rava. there's another case that we tried to ask on Rava, but we got out of it. Okay. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at the Ran on the past page, Chavav Amud Bet. Chavav Amud Bet, and 3, 6, 7 lines up from the bottom. Ile Rabbah. Ile Rabbah, Reisha leze uleze, Rabbi Akiva. Klomar, hold on a second. Should I continue? Yeah, you know what? Let's finish the Gemara and then we'll go to these runs. Okay, so this was another question on Rava, and the Gemara answered for Rava. So now, as says the Gemara, Man Tana. We are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 lines down from the top of the Gemara. Man Tana lehad Tana Rabbanan. Who is the Tana of this teaching that our rabbis taught? Nadar michamisha ben adam ke'echad. A person made a neder on 5 people at once. So all you 5 people are asur to benefit from it. Hutar le'echad mehem, hutru kulan. Then he does hatar nadim on one of them. All of them become hutar. Now, next case is chutz me'echad mehem. He says, all 5 of you are asur for me except for this guy. Chutz me'echad mehem, hu mutar ve'en asurin. So that guy is mutar, everyone else is asur. So case 1 is all 5 of you are asur, and he does a heter on one of them. Oh, now it breaks the whole thing up. And then case 2 is all 5 of you are asur, and in the same breath he says, except for you. So everyone is asur except for that guy. So the Gemara says that this could actually fit according to Rabbah and Rava. How? Says the Gemara. Ile Rabbah, if you want to say this statement of these 2 cases is Rabbah, Reisha Rabbi Akiva, Vesefa Divrei Yaakov. The Reisha, the first case, is according to Rabbi Akiva, and the second case of Chutz Me'echad Mehem is according to everyone. So let's see. According to Rabbah, the first case he says is according to Rabbi Akiva because that's a case of Mishaneh. So the case would be a case of Mishaneh that you said all 5 are you asur, and then later you made this guy mutar. That's a case of Mishaneh, Kula mutarim, and that's Rabbi Akiva. That is Kula mutarim, case of Mishaneh. According to Rabat, Machloket Bet Shammai Bet Hillel, Machloket Rabbi Akiva Rabbanan, that would work. And in the second case, when you say Chutz Me'echad Mehem, that's a case of Ma'amid. In a case of Ma'amid, according to Rabbah, everyone agrees. That's why it says Divrei Yaakov. Everyone agrees. Everyone's asur except for that person, and that's the halakha here. Chutz Me'echad Mehem hu mutar ve'en asurim. So we could fit this statement, these 2 statements, according to Rabbah. Let's see Rava. Ile Rava, we can work this out according to Rava also, and basically it's the opposite cases. Seifa Rabbanan, Vereisha Divrei Yaakov. Seifa's Rabbanan, so the Seifa case, the last case is Chutz Me'echad Mehem hu mutar ve'en asurim. That's according to Rabbanan. He says that's a case of Ma'amid, Chutz Me'echad. And in the case of Ma'amid, that's where there's the Machloket, Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. And that's where Bet Shammai says that either about Reisha Rabbi Akiva, Il Rava, Seifa Rabbanan, Vereisha Divrei Yaakov. Seifa is the Rabbanan, where that's going to be a case of Ma'amid, but according to Rabbanan, a case of Ma'amid, it's Hutru Kulam. It's Machloket Bet Shammai Bet Hillel, according to Rabbi Akiva, and they go to Bet Shammai, no? Well, let's see the Reisha. Reisha is Divrei HaKol. Oh no, I'm sorry. Yeah, Seifa, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Seifa, I got mixed up. The Seifa case is Chutz Mechad Mehem Hu Mutar Ve'en Asurin. That's according to Rabbanan. Then in the case of Ma'amid, according to Rava, then you're going to have one person Asur, everyone else Mutar. There's one person Mutar, everyone else Asur. So that fits. So according to Rava, the Seifa case of Chutz Mechad Mehem is a case of Ma'amid, and that goes like Rabbanan. And the case and the Reisha case is in a case of Meshaneh, and everyone's mutar. Once the case, the guy changed up the neder, mutar leechad, mutar lekulam. So this could fit according to Rabbah and Rava. So the Gemara basically asked 3 questions in Rava, and none of those questions stuck. He got out of all of them. We brought a last case, and they said that could fit according to Rabbah and Rava. Let's see now the run on this. And how the run goes to the halacha. Back to that run, Chavav Mubet, 7 lines up from the bottom. Ile Rabba Risha Lezeh Lezeh Rabbi Akiva. Klomar b'Meshaneh v'Sefer de Amar Kulachem v'Divrei HaKol Klomar b'Ma'amid. That's the cases we spoke of. Ile Rabba Risha Lezeh Lezeh v'Divrei HaKol Klomar b'Meshaneh v'Sefer Kulachem v'Rabbanan Klomar b'Ma'amid. Okay. Uli'inyan halacha. According, says the Ran, according to halacha, Kaim Alam ki Rabbi Akiva, Aliba de Bet Hillel. We go like Rabbi Akiva, and who goes according to Bet Hillel. The neder shutar migzato hutar kulo. A neder that is partially undone, the entire thing becomes undone. Ubiputa de Rabba v'Rava, and the machloket of Rabba and Rava. Who do we go like? Since there's reason to say that the halacha should be like Rabbah, Mishum dahava Rabbe de Rava. He was the rabbi of Rava, so you should say that halacha is like Rabbah. But there's a reason to say that halacha is like Rava because he comes later, because he's the student of Rabbah. You might say that he's later on in history, and if there's maybe it's now more refined the halacha. Nevertheless, naktinan kerabba lechumra. We go like Rabbah, and which is more stringent. The b'ma'amid kulehun asurin ve'aviv mutar. In the case of ma'amid, the guy says everyone's asur chutz me'aba. So then that remains where everyone is asur except for the father. In the case of Meshaneh, you're changing. Ben miprat leklal, ben miklal leprat. Be it if you were Meshaneh, and we had cases before from everyone's asur to miprat leklal. You started with this person's asur to everyone's asur, or everyone's asur to this person's asur. Kulan mutarin. All those cases of Meshaneh, kulan mutarin. Everyone's it's your Meshaneh the neder, and that's like Rabbi Akiva. That's your Meshaneh. Everyone's mutar mitzatu mutar kulo. Chen pasach Ramban. That's how the Ramban says as well. So he goes with Rabbi Akiva, Bet Hillel, and Rabbah. And it makes sense to go like Rabbah. It seems like because if the Gemara is always trying to attack Rava, even though they don't find they find the solution, but it seems like it's because he's the one that should be attacked.
And he was the student.
But he was the student. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's continue. Mishnah. And this is the last of the 4 Nedarim. Nidre Onsin. Nidre Onsin. Neders that are accidental. Nidre Onsin. Let's see what the case is. Hidiru chavero she'achal etzlo. A guy makes a neder that he says, if you don't come to my house, then you're never eating in my house again. Right?
It's not bad the food is.
Right? If you don't come to my house today, you're not coming ever again. So then what happened was, the guy that was invited, the guy that, the neder was made on, he got sick. Or his son got sick and he had to tend to his son. Or the river went out, or the river got too high, or there's no more bridge over the river. The river went out, so he couldn't get across to get to the friend's house. All these cases are nedarim, but in a case of a neder with an onus, and he didn't expect that his friend is going to have an onus, and therefore it's not included in this neder, and therefore the neder doesn't stick to the guy. So the guy says, if you don't come to my house, then never come again, never benefiting from me again. He doesn't expect the guy's going to get sick, his son's going to get sick, or that the river's going to overflow. And therefore, if I would have known that he's going to get sick, I wouldn't have made that neder. I'm compassionate. Even if I would have known my friend's his son's going to get sick, I would have not made the neder. I just said it because I wanted to come to my house, and if he's not coming for no other reason, then yeah, I'm going to be upset about it. So these are neder on scene, and the neder falls apart. And you don't need to undo it. Let's see the Ran on the Mishnah, which is the last line in the middle-sized lines of the Ran. Nidre on scene, idiro chavero sheyochal etzlo chulu, o shechala beno. Klomar de afa gav de lav ones gamuru. The Ran is saying, why do we have to bring the case of the son getting sick? The son getting sick isn't a ones gamur. It's not a full ones because he has the ability to go. Leave your son sick at home and go. Nevertheless, that's included in the Mishnah to teach us, even though it's not a full honest, because you could technically go. It's your son that's sick, nevertheless it's considered an honest because you have to tend to your son. It's an extra chidush of what's considered an honest. Because the first case and the last case is you physically can't go, you're sick, or you have the river that's blocking. In this case, it's also considered an honest.
Can we say 401 was clogged?
Yeah, any type of that could fit into something similar to this. Like the 401 was too busy. That's like the well, you have to know if did you leave it at the right time, or did you give yourself enough time to go, and then it happened to be an accident, or is it always busy at this time? You should have known. It's always busy at
In
this
English,
time.
they call it the circumstances beyond one's control. So
Yeah.
that would fall
Exactly.
beyond.
So if I made an
But
end,
is
I'm
it
going to pay
maybe
you
it's in your control?
$100,000,
As
and then
Rabbi
I
said,
go
like
bankrupt
maybe you
because
should have left half an hour
the
early.
economy tanked.
No, but if there's
it
an
wasn't in
accident
my
of
control.
401,
Accident is out of
and you're
control.
stuck
Something
on
that
the
wasn't
highway
under
for
control.
an
If it's
hour.
already
This said
rush hour.
circumstances beyond your control. So if I made a nether saying, Rabbi,
You
I'm
can
going to
still
pay
show up,
you,
you just be
I
late.
have to pay my
It's
debt.
different.
Right? I made a nether. And all of a
Well,
sudden, you go
your
back-
debt is
My
debt. It's
question
not a
is-
net
No,
there.
it's a nether.
Is it like
If I go by Neila,
I'll call
it's a
her.
nether.
I say, sorry, 401 is clogged. You're too far, I can't.
And then you realize you get home and not you. Let's say someone makes a nether. I have
and
$1,000
all of a sudden
cash
the
at home.
economy, and then Trump comes and put 25% tariff on your business, and you can't afford to pay. You made a nether, but the circumstances show, like I
Honest.
said, it was above my control. Isn't it better, in hindsight, never to make a nether?
Well, that also we already said that many times.
But I'm just saying, so we keep on again. But like I said, this is beyond control.
Someone
Like,
told
you
me.
do get a jail free pass for that too.
No, someone told me that if there's another thing with nethers in public that you can't get out of those. That's another thing we didn't learn about it yet.
So if you make a nether quietly between you and Hakadosh Baruch Hu, you can get out of it.
Well, it's more lenient, it seems.
I would think the opposite.
Well,
When I make a deal directly to a God, I don't care if Bob saw me, But if I'm making an edit, I'm talking to God. I say, Hashem, I'm gonna do this and this and this, right?
Oh, you're making it to Hashem and public.
And public, right.
In
But
public.
all the neighbors are
Not too
Hashem anyway.
public.
Yeah, that's
Right?
in public, which is stronger.
But in
We learned
terms
about
of
that yet.
tzedakah, but you have to give that. They say in your head you want to give
Even if you
certain
want,
amount.
tzedakah.
Yeah, I think
But you're right. If let's say there's an honest, like a guy says, I have $1,000 at home. Okay, do it $1,000. You get all the whole house burns down. It's like, oh, look, this is out of my control. I didn't know that.
Or your wife's spent.
Or is that might be in your control, out of your control, baby, out of your control.
Honey, where's that $1,000? Oh,
That's it. It's out of your control. So then, yeah, this is what to talk about. It's out of my control. I didn't think that's going to happen. and that can maybe undo it. Okay. Let's see the next run. First wide line. Hare elu nidre onsin. Lefi shelo ala al da'ato le'esor nechasav al chavero. It didn't come to his mind to make his property, his things asur on his friend. Im lo yochal imo, if he doesn't eat by him. El ksiyuchal lavo belo ones klal. I mean, the guy made the neder, with the intent that the guy is, if he doesn't come, then if he doesn't have an honest, but if he had an honest, right, then that didn't cross my mind. I understand if he has an honest, he has an honest. Even if there's a small honest, for instance, like his son got sick, he has to guard him, he has to watch him. Mutar, it works out. It was not in the mindset of the person that made the neder to have that in mind. Okay? Next, see the Gemara. Hu Gavra, there was a man, the atfis zachvata bevedina. He held up his zechuyot in bedin. Meaning, the guy, there was a business dealing over, let's say, a field, and a guy brings proof of that field that it's his on a star, and he brings it to Bedin, and he says, when he goes to Bedin, he brings the star to Bedin, Ve'amar, ilo atina atlatin yomin, if I don't come back in 30 days, liftilu nahani zachvatai, let this proof that I own this field, let it be batel, let it be void. For whatever reason, he said that, maybe just to prove that I'm going to be back in 30 days. I think, let's look at the run quickly, where it says Gemara, second line down. Im lo atina mikan atlatin yomin, divtil zechutai. If I don't come back in 30 days, then you could erase my zechut of this deed that shows that I'm the owner, let's say. Hagavra bikesh, this man requested mi bedin shitnu lozman, that he requested from bedin that he needs time. He needs time to pay. He needs time to. So therefore, he says, you know what? I need time. And
so he overpassed the 30 days.
No. Well, we're going to see in a moment.
He made a promise that if I don't come back in 30 days, I lose the deed.
Right.
But then he said he owes money.
No. The case was it seems like he needed time from Betin for whatever situation. He needed time
The explanation says he had more evidence and he had to get more.
To go get more evidence. Okay.
And they said they didn't trust him that he actually had more evidence. Just give us the evidence you have now. And then
he's like, okay, if I don't come back in 30 days, I'm going to lose the evidence.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So they says in Sanhedrin, anyone that if you have any evidence, bring it within 30 days. And he tells them, give me 30 days. And Bedin's like, this guy just wants to leave us and go to another Bedin. Like he brings some evidence in a case, and Bedin's like, that's not enough evidence. He's okay, give me 30 days. And Bedin doesn't want to fall for it because the guy's going to take his evidence with him, leave, go to another Bedin. And maybe that Bedin, for some reason, won't request more evidence. So Bedin's like, no, we don't want to do this deal with you. So Bedin's okay, let us hold on to your evidence for now, so you can't go run somewhere else, and we'll give you those 30 days. And he says, if I don't come within those 30 days, pretend this doesn't exist, this is void. So the Gemara says, and what happens? Itnis veloata. Back to when the guy got into an honest, he didn't show up. The river, he got sick, something came up and he didn't show up. What's the halacha now? Amar Rav Huna.
Someone with a Tesla truck.
Oh, I saw you, Ralph. Yeah. Can you just get a tissue? Tissues.
There's no tissue. There's tissue.
Yeah, just Is this the season for allergies?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something to get allergies on. Yesterday I sneezed like many times.
Because all the pollen, all the grass is growing.
Is that it, eh?
Yeah.
Figure something out. Okay. Sorry, that was on a recording there. Okay, so the guy didn't show up. But he didn't show up because of an onus. Itnis vilota, there's an onus, he didn't show up. What happens? What's the halacha? Amar Ravuna, says Ravuna, Batil zachvate. His zechut is void. You didn't show up, too bad. Amar le Rava tells him, Anusu, he's an onus. Ve'anus rachman apatre. This is a very famous line. Anytime there's an onus, Hashem says he's patur. Dichtiv, and where do we know that from the Torah? Ulenara lo taseh davar. This is the case lo alenu, that a lady gets taken advantage of, she gets raped, and so the man gets killed. Let's say she was a married woman, man gets killed, and the woman don't do nothing to her. She didn't do anything. It was against her will. So you see, an onus is against her will. Welcome back. Baruch haba. How you doing? Good. How's Florida?
It's excellent.
Good.
Look at him.
Yeah. That was your daughter.
Ashkenaz.
The proof.
It's not my fault. I was blessed.
Okay. So, an honest, Rachmana Patre, that's what Rava tells him back. So, says the Gemara, V'chite maktalashani. You might say that when it comes to death, it's different, meaning the reason why the girl in this case is off the hook is because the guy's penalty is death penalty. So we're not going to give her a death penalty because she was against her will. But if the penalty would have been something else, maybe we would have given her something. But you might think that, V'atanan, nidre onsin, hidiru chavero sheyochal etzlo, v'chala hu, o shechala beno, sheikevo nahar, harelu nidre onsin. So you see that you might think. So Rava basically in this conversation with Rav Huna uses our Mishnah as a proof. So Mishnah is from the Tanaim, the Amoraim, Rav Huna. So Rav Huna said again, the case was the guy put his zechuyot of his deed, etc. in Bedin. The guy didn't show up because of an ones. Rav Huna says, "Sorry, sir, you lost your thing." Rav says, "What do you mean? It's an ones." And we know from the Torah, someone that has an honest is patur. Look at the lady in the case she gets taken advantage of, she's patur. And if you say that she's only patur because the punishment for the man is death penalty, therefore we're going to give her off the hook, but if the punishment was something else, she would be on the hook. No, we have a Mishnah. Rav Huna, we have a Mishnah which is from Tanaim that says if there's a neder of a guy who says you're never going to get in my house again if you don't show up, and the guy gets sick, or the guy's son gets sick, or the riverbank goes out, whatever, then it's an honest. And that's what the Mishnah says, it's an honest. So therefore, Rav Huna, you're wrong. That's it. And that's where we're pausing the Gemara for today. I spoke that out. And then we'll see. The Gemara's going to question Rava, etc. And that will be for tomorrow night. Be'ezrat Hashem. 4 lines up from the bottom on Chav Zayin Amar Aleph. Zak Ubaruch.